Daniel 7, and of course Judges 5. Daniel 7 and Judges 5. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdom unto the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. I tell you, that verse right there, you could read 100 times, and I think every time it'd charge you up. That's Jesus Christ coming back and claiming it all. It's all his, and he's going to run it the right way. That's going to be a day. Now, he taught in Judges chapter 5, we get a preview of the event, how it's going to happen. Judges 5, verse 8. Judges 5, verse 8. This, of course, is the story of Gideon and, or not Gideon, of Deborah and Barak and Sisera, one after sister. That happened in chapter 4. Chapter 5 is a song about it. Deborah sings this. Judges 5, verse 8. They chose new gods. Then was war in the gates. Isn't that the fact? A second, a nation or a people decides they want a god other than the God. God allows war. He stirs it up. Was there a shield or a spear seen among 40,000 in Israel? My heart is toward the governors of Israel, that offered themselves willingly among the people. Bless ye the Lord. Speak ye that ride on white asses, ye that sit in judgment and walk by the way, they that are delivered from the noise of archers in the places of drawing of water. I said that wrong. In the places of drawing water. There shall they rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord, even the righteous acts toward the inhabitants of his villages in Israel. Then shall the people of the Lord go down to the gates. A lot of heavy-duty stuff in that, once you start breaking it apart. He says in verse 8, they chose new gods. Now, historically, you can say that's the apostasy of Israel. When they did do this, they actually did start switching allegiance to the gods that were being served by the heathen around them. That's a bad move to make. You're not like the people around you. One of the worst things a Christian can do is try to meld in with the society around him. You're different on purpose. Stay that way. You're going somewhere different. Deuteronomy 32. Deuteronomy 32, 16. Deuteronomy 32, 16. They provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. With abominations provoked they him to anger. That is, they made God mad. They sacrificed unto devils, not to God. To gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. That is, just like the modern perversions, there's always a new one. There's not one that satisfies everything, so you got to bring in another one. How about just stick with the one that can't be changed? It always gets my goat when they put out a new version. And they always compare it to the oldest one, the King James. How about compare it to the one that came right before you, and fix that one instead of saying you're fixing the King James? I thought the new one was supposed to fix it, and then they need a new one on top of that one. Okay, there's a difference between two sides, God and the devil. You line up behind one or the other, and if you're lining up behind the devil, you've got to always be changing. Prophetically, this is a reference to the Antichrist and his image in the tribulation that everyone's going to be demanded to serve. That's a new God. And it will be a physical God on the earth. The God of this world will become physically the ruler of this world. Revelation 13. Revelation 13:4. Revelation 13:4. And they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. So stay away from dragons, regardless of what Hollywood tells you. And they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, or who is able to make war with him? Well, they're about to find out. Drop down to verse 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. There's no mercy with the devil. God is a God of mercy. You still being able to breathe is evidence of that. The devil is just the opposite. He's very cruel. If he's allowed someone to have what looks like mercy, hang on, it's for a reason. At the end of it, he's very cruel. Look at the rock music singers and the movie stars who've sold their souls to the devil. Look at the end of their life. It's not very pleasant. And if you can't see it there, look beyond it to where they spend eternity. That will not be pleasant. Some Jews gave up and apostatized, just as they will do in the tribulation. Some, when the devil comes in and says, you got to worship this image, then they'll say, okay, well, that's, we'll do good, that we'll do evil that we may do good. You don't compromise on that. God told him from the beginning of the Bible to the end of the Bible, if you got one God, if you got any other God, I'm against you. Our verse said there was war in the gates. And he says, was there a shield or was there a spear? The inference from that is that they didn't have weapons. So look out when your government tries to take your weapons away. Our Constitution was set up on purpose so that the people were in charge, not the government. Now, that's not, the Constitution is not the Bible. However, it's a principle from the Bible. When they can take your weapons, they can take you. You've got nothing to fight against. The weapons among the Israelites are outlawed. Let's watch it. Judges 3, verse 13. No, not 13. Judges 3:31. Judges 3:31, and there's a reason I want you to go there. Well, maybe we'll run into it here in a minute. Judges 3, verse 31. And after him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, which slew of the Philistines 600 men with an ox goad, and he also delivered Israel. How did he kill them? With an ox goad. That's not really a weapon of war. That was for farming. That's the cattle prod. But that's what they did because they didn't have weapons. Shamgar, he's in our passage in Judges 5. I missed it somewhere. He's in there. Let's see. Verse 6. Oh, okay, verse 6. Yes, in the days of Shamgar, the son of Anath, in the days of Jael. Okay, those are two separate things. The highways were unoccupied, and the travelers walked by the byways. Okay, so why is she referring back to this guy? Because in his days, it was the same. The Israelites did not have weapons. If you were going to oppose the enemy, you had to make your own weapon or use what was at hand. And that tells you what's going to happen in the tribulation. More than likely, all over the world now, you find it. They're outlawing guns and they're outlawing weapons. You need those to survive. Revelation 13. Revelation 13, 15. Notice where life is bound. He says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. So he's giving life here, but he's taking life somewhere else. He's taken life from the humans in order to give it to an inanimate object. Whew. This is the Antichrist. That's the priority. We've almost switched that way now when people give more rights to an animal than to a human. Okay, the mind is messed up. They see life, but they only see it in the wrong spots. In verse 9, Judges 5:9, the governors here of Israel. Those are the ones that are in verse 10 that are riding on the white asses. Historically, that's a reference to the judges or the people who sat like Deborah did and judged causes. But it's more than just a judge. Because the book is called what? Judges. Those were the leader. The leader would come to the forefront. And he's not merely judging one case against another. He's actually judging, we're going to war, we're not going to war. Clean it up. Now, we've got smooth, soft titles for people nowadays. A prime minister. Doesn't that just sound sweet? You know how God says it? A judge. That sounds a little more authoritative, doesn't it? At Numbers 11. Numbers 11:16. These judges, plural, would be probably sons or relatives of the main judge. They would have, of course, the main judge couldn't judge all of Israel because he wasn't in all the places and he didn't have the internet back then. Uh, so he would put his relatives in charge of certain territories and things like that. Numbers 11, verse 16. The Lord said unto Moses, gather unto me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom thou knowest to be the elders of the people, and officers over them, and bring them unto the tabernacle of the congregation, that they may stand there with thee, and I will come down and talk with thee there, and I will take of the Spirit which is upon thee, and I will put it upon them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with thee, that thou bear it not thyself alone. God's plan was not to put it all on one person, but he wasn't just arbitrarily saying, just pick anybody you want. Notice these people that were picked were God-given wisdom. He put his Spirit on them, the Spirit of wisdom, in order to judge. Deuteronomy 1, verse 12. God says how many? 70. But you know what we do? We say, you gave me a little help, but it's not enough. That's exactly what goes on here. God intended 70. The people said, we're bigger than 70. You know, we're a mega church by now. And they were the real mega church. Numbers 1, verse 12. Not Numbers. Y'all have to read my notes. Deuteronomy 1, verse 12. It says, how can I myself alone bear your cumbrance and your burden and your strife? Moses says, I can't handle all this. Take you wise men and understanding, and know among your tribes, and I will make them rulers over you. Just pick out who you think is good and bring them to me, and I'll say they can rule. 14. And ye answered me and said, the thing which thou hast spoken is good for us to do. So I took the chief of your tribes, wise men and known, and made them heads over you, captains over thousands, captains over hundreds, captains over 50s, captains over 10s, officers over your tribes. That's a whole lot more than 70. 16. And I charged your judges, this is a different category, judges, at that time, saying, hear the causes between your brethren, and judge righteously between every man and his brother, and the stranger that is with him. Ye shall not respect persons in judgment, but ye shall hear the small as well as the great. Ye shall not be afraid of the face of man, for the judgment is God's, and the cause that is too hard for you, bring unto me, and I will hear it. I wish we could convince our judges nowadays of this. The judgment is not of man. The judgment is of God. But you know what they've got? They've got 1,000 rule books now. And they're going to run to all these rule books, and they've all got some precedent, and another attorney will show up and say, well, I know another one that contradicts that one. And it's a mess. It was like when I was working at FedEx. They had so many rules. Every time they would make a rule, they would print it out and you had to sign it. They were smart about it. They would do it first thing in the morning before you go on your route. Well, it's all you can do to keep up with what you've already got. So you sign the thing and hand it back. Well, you don't have a copy of it. You don't know you signed that thing. Well, they got the copy somewhere. Your signature's on it. And if you were smart enough to keep it by the end of the day, it would be gone. What they did do was every year was published the rule book. And you couldn't have the rule book. Only the managers has the rule book. If you want to review the rules, you can. You have to tell your manager you want to see it and sit in his office and read it. So he knows what you're after. Well, I acquired one. We won't talk about how I got that, but not yet. I saw it come down the line, and it was going to a manager that was no longer there, so I figured I took that place today. So I took that book and I mastered that book. But I realized right off the bat is the rules all contradict each other. All I needed, if I had that rule book, I could do literally anything I wanted and get away with it and point to a rule that said it was okay. And I did. Deuteronomy 16, verse 18. It says, Judges and officers shalt thou make in all thy gates, which the Lord thy God giveth thee, throughout thy tribes, and they shall judge the people with just judgment. The problem nowadays is people don't recognize what justice is because they're so far from the Bible. What God considers justice, population may not, and tomorrow they may not. Their idea of fair and right changes with the times. Judges 10, Judges 10, verse 3. And after him arose Jar, a Gileadite, and judged Israel 22 years. And he had 30 sons that rode on 30 ass colts. And they had 30 cities, which are called Havajathar, unto this day, which are in the land of Gilead. So there he's got 30 sons. Well, now he's got a big family. So he sends them out as his representatives, as the ambassadors and whatnot in the different territories in order to keep a hand on all the stuff that's going on. Judges 12, verse 13. And after him, Abdon, the son of Hithel, a Parathonite, judged Israel, and he had 40 sons and 30 nephews that rode on 70 asses colt, and he judged Israel 8 years. These guys aren't just riding around because they're bored and have nothing to do. They're going in a circuit judging and representing the state to figure out causes and complaints. 1 Samuel 8, verse 1. And it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn, I'm not going to go through all these names. This is the way it was done. Was a judge would come to the forefront, and then he would start finding someone that could help him. And it was supposed to be done according to God pointing them out, God giving them the ability and the strength to do it. You find the same thing happens when they're trying to find a replacement for Judas. They don't just want anybody to step in there. God has to show this is the one I want. Nowadays, the judicial system is all messed up because it's done on who's got the most money and who can get the most votes and who can tell the biggest lie and convince people. It's crooked. The governors of Israel, who are specially given this position, are probably what they're talking about when he says the princes of Issachar. That is the good judges, the princes. But we're going to find there's more to the story than just a figurative. There's coming a day when there'll be princes. Judges 5, verse 15. And the princes of Issachar were with Deborah. Now we think about that. That can't really be. Deborah's not a king. They didn't have any king at this point. Okay, so they're not literal princes. So she can't be referring to something that happened in chapter 4. It has to be something that's going to happen future. And in the future there will be. She says, or the verse says, in verse 10, ye that ride on white asses, ye that sit in judgment. Obviously, somebody is sitting there as a judge like a tribunal. There's coming a day, Jesus Christ is coming back to this earth, and he's coming back with some rulers, and they're going to judge. That's what he's talking about with these people on white asses. Now, I further sift that. I say those that are on the white asses are Jews, not Gentiles. Gentiles ride on horses, and we'll judge too. If you suffer with him, then you can reign with him. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, the riders on horses are the bride of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then Israel, the
Mm-hmm.
Jews on mules.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Matthew 19. Matthew 19, verse 27.
One more time.
Matthew 19, 27. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? Isn't that just like Peter? He's saying what everybody else is thinking. Yeah, but you know everybody else was thinking the same thing. Hey, I've given everything up, and you know, what am I getting out of this? What's the return on investment here? Matthew 19, verse 28. And Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. There's a Jewish thing, there's judges, and they're sitting with Christ to rule, or to judge. That's not speaking to Gentiles. That's obviously Jewish. But we know that the Gentiles get an option for that too. Revelation 20.
So, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
The 12 thrones or the 12 apostles
Mhm.
of Jesus,
Mhm.
and that would include
Paul.
Judas.
No.
No,
Go to Acts 1. Acts 2 maybe. It's Paul. Acts? No, good question. Yeah.
Because I thought that once he betrayed Jesus, that he would have gone to hell, but in your teaching you said that no, because he was saved.
No,
Am I wrong? I don't.
no, he was not saved. He was a devil from the beginning. That's what Jesus says. He was far from saved. Yeah. He's the Antichrist, which is about to be reincarnated or brought up from the pit. All right, we're in Acts 125. Yes. That he may take part of this ministry and apostleship, from which Judas by transgression fell, that he might go to his own place. His own place is hell. He's going to come up from hell to be the Antichrist. And now I'll give you his replacement. They tried to come up with a replacement. You notice there, God didn't tell them to do this. They just thought this was what they should be doing. So who replaced Judas? So, right. Did God accept it? God didn't tell him to do it. We know there's only 12, because in Revelation they have 12 gates and 12 pearls with the names of the apostles. You found there in Matthew, there's 12 seats judging the 12 tribes. Look at it in Romans 11. Romans 11:13. Romans 11:13. For I speak unto you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles. I magnify mine office. So there Paul says, I'm the apostle. They already had 11, and they needed a 12th. They thought they had one. Paul shows up and says, sorry, I'm the apostle. Now, let's find out if he's just being pompous. Acts 26:16. This is when he was on the road and got blinded, and obviously this is his conversion experience. Verse 16, but arise and stand upon thy feet, for I have appeared unto thee for this purpose, to make thee a minister and a witness both of the things which thou hast seen and of those things which I will appear unto thee. So this is a hand-picked guy. I want another verse. Let's see. It's 1 Corinthians 9. 1 Corinthians 9:1. He says, am I not an apostle? So he's going to justify his apostleship here in this chapter. And then he goes through and says how I qualify. He's seen the Lord, all these different things. Look at it in 1 Timothy 1. 1 Timothy 1, verse 12. He says, for I thank Christ Jesus our Lord, who hath enabled me, for that he counted me faithful, putting me into the ministry. Verse 14. And the grace of our Lord was exceedingly abundant with faith and love, which is in Christ Jesus. Verse 16. Howbeit, for this cause I obtained mercy, that in me first Jesus Christ might show forth all longsuffering for a pattern to them which should hereafter believe on him to life everlasting. That's the church age. He says, I'm the beginning. I'm the pattern that the church age will have to look back and see. That's not saying someone was not saved the way the church age is saved or grandfathered in before Paul, because we know there were. However, he is the leader that steps up and lays down the foundation of doctrine from then on. And we see how the Lord appeared to him in Galatians. You find that he's there in Damascus for 3.5 years, out of pocket from everybody's sight, being taught of God, not man. Okay, Revelation 20. Revelation 20. Revelation 20, verse 4. Our commercial break is over. No, that's fine. That's a good question. Paul is a good one to be fluent on, because there are people who will say that they don't believe in Paul because they see a contradiction between Paul and Jesus Christ. And there are. See, they want to set up the kingdom. Well, that's what Jesus was preaching, a kingdom. The Jews rejected it. He said, okay, it's off the table. Won't come back till I say, and you'll pay for it when it does. And so they're wanting the kingdom now. Well, the kingdom ain't now. Revelation 20, verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. So those are the millennial judges. They get to rule and reign, he says, and judge for 1,000 years. So that's similar to what we saw in our story where, well, it's not a story there, it's a song that Deborah has sung to them. When Christ comes, he comes back with two groups, at least. The ones that ride on the asses and the ones that ride on horses. Revelation 19:14. And I saw the armies, plural, which were in heaven, follow him upon white horses. So we get a white horse. Don't get yours dirty. Clothed in fine linen, white and clean. Revelation 19:8. This is the bride of Christ. And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. For fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. So that's who's riding on the horses coming back. This other group are the governors. Those are the ones who endure to the end, or the ones that are beheaded and get to rule and reign. Song of Solomon 6. Yeah, Song of Solomon 6, verse 13. Song of Solomon 6, verse 13. I'm going to point you out a word in here. There's a word and then a similar word that you need to take note of when you see it in the Bible. Return or awake. Both of those words will signal a rapture or a resurrection prophecy. Return, return, O Shulamite, return, that we may look upon thee. What will you see in the Shulamite? As it were a company of two armies. So that's the souls under the altar. They're crying. And what are they crying? Come back and judge these people who cut our head off. And the Shulamite, the Gentile, is going to return. Remember, we left. The body of Christ was raptured out. She's saying, bring her back so that she can give just judgment. Says she's coming back. Matter of fact, she's coming back with two armies. That's right, the bride of Christ does return, but also with a Gentile division. Judges 5:11. Judges 5:11. They that are delivered from the noise of the archers in the places of drawing water, there shall they rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord, even the righteous acts toward the inhabitants of his villages in Israel. Then shall all the people of the Lord go down to the gates. Now it gets exciting. They're delivered from the noise of archers. That's not real noisy. The twang of a arrow string, a bow string, that's not real noisy. But he says they're delivered from that noise. And it could literally be a pure weapon that is a string and a bow and, an arrow. And it may go back that way. I think it's going to go back to actual horses and that type of artillery. And probably there's going to be an EMP or something that goes off and knocks out all this highfalutin technology that people think they have. He said they're delivered from the noise of archer in the places of drawing of water. Okay, did he say places plural or place singular? In the places plural of drawing of water. Where do you normally draw water from? A well, that's down in the earth. But this is a reference to somebody coming down out of outer space. And there's water up there. And I've said it many times, not all the rain that comes down is condensation and, the scientific circle thing. Some of it is God opening the windows of heaven, just like he did in Noah's day. Our condensation would have run out over 4,000 years by now. I think from time to time, God just slides the window open and says, y'all need to refresh. And he does it. This is also a reference to somebody coming down. That's us coming down out of outer space. Now, what are they coming down for? They're going to rehearse the righteous acts. What righteous acts is Christ going to do when he comes? He's going to level this place. It's a dress rehearsal for a military operation. Now, I don't know if it's going to be visibly seen to anybody around. But according to the verse, it looks like before the Advent, before Armageddon, we all come back and have a little dress rehearsal. And he says, this is how we're going to go in, and y'all take that side over there. Remember, it's supernatural beings. They can be invisible to everybody else around them. Pretty good stuff. Revelation 6. Revelation 6, verse 4. And there went out another horse that was red, and power given unto him that sat thereon to take from the earth, to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Just havoc on earth. Verse 8. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed him. And power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and with beast of the earth. Ooh, you don't want to run into a general like that. He has the power of death. I don't know, that could be, some sort of a pandemic, or it could be death personified as the angel of death itself. He has more than that. He has the power of the beast. Who else was given that power? Nebuchadnezzar. Who else had it before Nebuchadnezzar? Nimrod. They all match up. Revelation 12, verse 17. Revelation 12, verse 17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. That is, there's pure war going on, and they need someone to come in to the rescue. And that's exactly what Jesus Christ is going to do. And it's more than just that. He's been planning it for how many years? This is a general whose name is a man of war. And he's been planning a war for thousands of years. And he said, I'm excited about it. I know my people are going to be excited about it too. Matter of fact, we're going to go down there and have a little rehearsal. And then he's going to lead them away. Job chapter 38. Job 38, verse 30. This drawing of water is where they're coming down from. They're going down to the gates. If it was talking about Jerusalem, it wouldn't matter where you were in Jerusalem, north, south, east, or west. The elevation of Jerusalem is higher than any place else. They always say up to Jerusalem. So if he's going down to the gates, you've got to be up, like as in the North Star up, that way, not on the surface of the earth. Job 38, verse 30. The waters are hid as with a stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. That tells you, if you could get you a telescope and look all the way through, the biggest thing they got, you may not see anything. Or what you may see is a reflection of a whole bunch of everything you already just saw. Because he says the deep has a face that's frozen, is like glass. What happens when you look in a mirror? You see multiples for the one thing you saw. That's what you're seeing if you could see all the way up there. And we're coming down through that thing. That's where his throne is. Revelation 4, verse 6. Revelation 4, 6. And before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. Okay, that's the top side of it. The bottom side of it is, if you're looking up, it's hid like a frozen lake. The top side of it, he says this, like a sea of glass, like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne, around about the throne, were the four beasts, full of eyes before and behind. That's the throne of God right there. And he's got a trap door in it. And he's going to lead us all the way back down here, and we're going to do some battle. That, of course, is in chapter 15 of Revelation, and we sure don't have time to go there. Judges 5, verse 12. Judges 5:12. Judges 5:12, he says, awake, awake. That's the word I told you to look out for. The word awake and the word return. Both of those are always a reference to our leaving or someone's leaving, or either a reference to a resurrection. Sometimes it's one or the other. She's saying here, awake, awake, Deborah. And now, as if you didn't hear it, awake, awake, utter a song. That's what she just did. Arise, Barak, and lead thy captivity captive, like what Jesus did. Thou son of Abimelech. Now, here's the reference I make to this, and I hear other people make other references. Leading captivity captive. We've seen just before this verse was we're going to have a dress rehearsal for a righteous act of Jesus Christ or of God. I think this leading captivity captive, we saw Jesus do it when he went to the lower parts of the earth. So we know what it means. He takes out those who were captive. They're now his prisoner. The same is going to happen with the remnant when we come back. When we come back, the remnant was in captivity to the Antichrist and the devil. And they're now going to be captive to the King of Kings. And that captivity he's taking, I'm claiming these people are mine now. And you won't be able to do anything about it. Verse 13. Then he made him that remaineth, that is a remnant, have dominion over the nobles among the people, the Lord made me have dominion over the mighty. All prophetic, we just don't have time to go deep as I want. No, we're already past time. All right, we'll pick up there next week at Judges 5. I'm going to skip some of this. I'll pick you up at Judges 5:13 next week.